Hey there, welcome back to the Deep Dive.
It's great to have you with us.
Today we're tackling a seriously large stack of sources, analysis reports, detailed stats, recent form breakdowns, head-to-head dynamics, player availability. It works all focused on European football fixtures scheduled for June 1st, 2025.
Yeah, quite a pile. Think of this as your personal shortcut, really, to being well informed about this specific day of football.
Right.
Our mission is to cut through the noise, find those, crucial nuggets of knowledge, and highlight the key insights that could truly inform your understanding of these matches.
Exactly. We're diving deep into the data behind the beautiful game on this specific day. Okay, let's unpack this. What are the big overarching themes this stack of sources is highlighting right away?
Well, what's fascinating when you look across all these sources is the sheer variety of contexts and how that context really dictates everything.
Okay.
The critical influence of end-of-season motivation is just huge, especially in those high-stakes playoff and final day scenarios like we'll see across Spain's La Liga too.
Makes sense.
Teams fighting for something tangible are just, well, different animals than those with nothing left to play for.
Right. That pressure isn't just psychological, is it?
Right.
It changes tactics.
Yeah.
And the data seems to be flagging specific scoring patterns, like teams that are significantly stronger or weaker in one half compared to the other.
Absolutely. Understanding if a team consistently scores late or perhaps collapses defensively after the break, that presents unique tactical insights.
Right.
These half-specific trends can really tell you how a game is likely to flow. The sources also spend a lot of time on the psychological impact of historical head-to-head records, but with a vital warning. You must always weigh that against current form and significant personnel changes.
Okay.
A dominant historical record means a lot less if the core group of players has changed or, they're hit with injuries.
Player availability. That feels massive. Injuries can totally mitigate perceived team strength, sometimes just gutting a team's ability to perform.
Precisely. Yeah, the analysis points to that being a decisive factor in several games we'll look at.
Right.
And while we'll explore each match, these sources highlight a few high-confidence projections based on the data. Norway's Motoglint is looking dominant against a struggling Haugesund, with the win to 0 expected.
Okay.
Rosenborg is also strongly favored for a win to 0 against KFUM Oslo. In Italy, Serie B, the playoff final second leg between Spezia and Cremonese is tagged as a low-scoring tactical affair.
Tight one.
Very. And conversely, in the Netherlands Eredivisie playoff, Willem II versus Telstar is leaning towards high scoring with both teams expected to find the net.
So that end-of-season pressure, player impact, and these interesting half-specific patterns feel like the threads we'll see woven through these fixtures.
This raises an important question for you to consider as we go through this. When you look at football fixtures, how much does the why behind a game, the stakes, the context, influence the tactical approach compared to a team's usual season-long style?
Something to think about. Okay, let's start our deep dive into the specific matches by heading over to Finland, the Veikkausliiga. First up, Kristiansund hosting Ilves at 2 p.m. Kristiansund is mid-table. Ilves is pushing towards the top.
Yeah, according to these sources, this match is fundamentally a contest of contrasting halves.
Okay.
Kristiansund, sitting 7th, is unbeaten at home, which is good, but they've hit a slight dip with no wins in their last 2 overall.
Right.
Their home stats are really striking early on, though. They've scored first in every home game.
Wow.
Held at halftime in 67% of them, and a remarkable 80% of their home goals come in the first half.
So they come flying out of the blocks. But then the data suggests they struggle to hold on to that lead.
That's their key vulnerability, exactly. Their lead defense rate is only 25% at home.
Ouch.
Meaning they've conceded equalizers in 3 of the 4 games where they've held a lead. Their average total goals are around 3.13, and the underlying numbers, XGF 1.55, XGA 1.63, show they concede slightly more quality chances than they create.
Okay, so an explosive but potentially fragile first half from Kristiansund? What about Ilves up in third?
Ilves has a less convincing away record, more losses than wins. They also don't tend to score multiple goals away from home.
Right.
But their overall scoring record is solid, netting in 7 of their 8 matches. Here's the contrast, though. They tend to score later. 75% of their away goals are in the second half. They start slowly, conceding first in 3/4 of their away games, but interestingly, they have a 100% away lead defense rate.
Really?
Yeah. Once they get ahead, they hold on away from home.
So Ilves is the slow burn that finishes strong and holds leads, while Kristiansund starts fast but might fold. That's a fascinating tactical clash highlighted by the data.
It really is. The head-to-head history is also interesting. Historically, the average goals are very high between them, like way up there.
Okay.
But the last 3 meetings have been the complete opposite, fewer than 2.5 goals, and neither team scoring in any of them.
That's a shift.
A notable shift, yeah. That recent trend is towards lower scoring, more conservative games.
Any major player news?
Ginstan is missing Marcelo Costa. But there's big news for them, with Roman Aremenko called up to the Finland national team. First time a senior player from their club has achieved that, apparently.
Wow, yeah.
Highlights his current form and importance, especially in midfield or attack. Ilves doesn't have specific injuries listed in the sources, suggesting they'll field a strong squad.
So the tactical battle is clear. Nistan's early aggression meeting Ilves' slower start, but second-half strength and resilience.
Yeah.
Niskan's poor lead defense seems tailor-made for Ilves' ability to push in the second half and hold on to a lead if they get one. The second half feels decisive here.
Yeah, the data is really pointing to a few things for this one. Nistan is highly likely to score in the first half, given their home trend.
Makes sense.
Over 1.5 total goals in the match seems probable. Ilves likely to score in the second half, aligning with their away trend and Nistan's later vulnerability.
Okay.
And crucially, Ilves is likely to win the second half based on Nistan's poor lead defense against Ilves' strong second half performance and resilience. Just, be cautious with betting on over 2.5 goals due to that recent head-to-head trend towards tighter games.
Next up in Finland, Jaro versus Turku at 4:30 p.m. This looks like a classic case of team near the bottom versus team near the top.
Absolutely. Jaro, down in 10th, has really struggled at home lately and offensively overall. A huge red flag from the analysis. They've lost all 3 matches they've played against current top 4 teams this season.
That's telling.
Yeah. Plus, their defense is particularly vulnerable in the second half, conceding 5 of their 7 home goals after the break. The underlying numbers kind of confirm this struggle, with low expected goals for 1.08 and high expected goals against 1.72.
So they struggle to create good chances and are leaky defensively, especially late in the game. Turku, up in second, sounds like a completely different story.
They're flying, unbeaten in their recent away games, and they've scored in every single match this season.
Every match. Wow.
Every one. While they can start slow, their first match was 0-0 at halftime, they consistently find ways to break through. Their defense is solid overall, even if they only have 1 away clean sheet. Their expected goals for is a strong 2.00.
How does their history stack up?
Well, the recent 5 meetings are surprisingly even, actually.
Oh, okay.
But if you look at the broader history of 22 matches, Turku has a massive advantage, 14 wins compared to Jaro's single win.
Right.
That substantial historical dominance, combined with Jaro's consistent struggle against top 4 teams this season, strongly suggests Inter's superiority is likely to hold in this match.
Any significant player absences noted in the sources?
The reports for this match were more generic, didn't list any specific major injuries for either side's playing squad.
Okay.
This implies both teams are likely fielding their strongest available players based on the data we have.
Right, so tactically, the data leans heavily towards Inter's offense dominating this match.
Yeah, their robust attack, averaging over 2 goals per game with that 2.0 XGF, seems perfectly positioned to exploit Jaro's defensive issues.
Mm-hmm.
Those issues are highlighted by Jaro's high average home goals conceded, 2.33 per game, and their vulnerability in the second half.
So Inter scoring multiple goals seems probable, especially in the second half when Jaro is at their weakest defensively against top teams.
That's precisely what the analysis suggests. The key takeaways for this match are pretty clear. Turku is expected to score over 1.5 goals.
Okay.
Turku is favored to win the match outright. The data also indicates Turku is likely to score in the first half, as their attacking pressure is consistent.
Right.
And aligned with Jaro's 2H vulnerability and Inter's ability to maintain pressure, the second half is likely to be the higher scoring half.
Shifting gears now, let's look at the high stakes in Italy with the Serie B promotion playoff final, second leg. Spezia versus Cremonese at 7:30 p.m. The first leg ended 0-0.
Yeah, winner goes to Serie A. This is massive. Spezia finished 15th in the regular season, Cremonese 4th. That 0-0 first leg immediately sets the expectation for the rematch. A tight, low-scoring, tactical battle where neither side wants to make the mistake that costs them promotion.
Makes perfect sense for such a crucial game. Do the stats support that expectation?
Well, recent form for both is a bit mixed. Spezia has shown periods of defensive solidity with 18 clean sheets this season, while Cremonese has 13.
Okay.
Interestingly, both teams actually have a statistical tendency for more goals in the first half of their matches. Spezia in 44% of their games, Cremonese in 50% of their away games. However, the immense pressure and the 0-0 aggregate might well override that usual tendency, leading to more caution early on, you'd think.
What about their history against each other? Does one side have an edge?
This is a really compelling data point from the sources. Cremonese is heavily favored historically in this matchup.
Oh, yeah.
Spezia hasn't won in their last 8 meetings against Cremonese, a run stretching all the way back to February 2020.
8 meetings. Wow.
Yeah. In that period, Cremonese has outscored Spezia 12-5. Overall, in 17 meetings, Cremonese has won 8 to Spezia's 3. That extensive history gives Cremonese a significant psychological edge coming into this decisive second leg.
Player availability is often key in these late-season matches. Any major concerns?
Well, Spezia relies heavily on Francesco Pio Esposito, their top scorer with 18 goals this season, 8 of which were opening goals. But they're missing Luca Vignali, Niccolò Bertola, and Fally Sarr.
Okay.
Cremonese has more significant absences noted. Goalkeeper Gianluca Saro, Luca Ravanelli out with appendicitis, and Matteo Bianchetti sidelined.
Right.
Plus, there are fitness doubts for Charles Pickle and their captain Michele Castagnetti, who reportedly got dizzy in the first leg. Concerns in Cremonese's midfield could potentially impact their control of the game.
So despite Cremonese's injuries, especially those midfield doubts, the tactical expectation is still very much a grind.
Exactly. Both teams will prioritize defense given the stakes and the 0-0 first leg. Cremonese, with their strong away record and history of protecting leads, will likely focus on defensive discipline and opportunism on the break.
So even with personnel issues, Cremonese's historical dominance and defensive focus in high-stakes games means the data points towards a tight, potentially low-scoring game where they still have the edge.
That's the conclusion the analysis draws. The key takeaways for this playoff final second leg are under 2.5 goals is considered highly probable.
Right.
Both teams to score NO is also a confident projection, particularly given Spezia's history against Cremonese.
Okay.
Cremonese to win, or draw no bet, is favored due to their historical dominance and strong away record, even factoring in the injuries. A goal in the first half probably approached cautiously. If it happens, it's likely to be from a moment of individual brilliance like Esposito, or maybe an error induced by pressure rather than free-flowing offense.
Let's switch over to the Netherlands for another high-stakes playoff. The Eredivisie relegation playoffs, second leg. Willem II versus Telstar at 5 p.m. The first leg was a wild 2-2 draw.
Yeah, that 2-2 first leg tells you everything about the dynamic expected here. Willem II, the Eredivisie side, is in trouble on a concerning 16-match winless streak in the league itself.
16? Wow.
Yeah, it's bad. Their matches average 2.65 total goals, but they concede a high 1.65 per game. Their expected goals for 1.13 is quite low, showing they struggle to create top-quality chances.
A 16-match winless streak in the lead-up to a relegation decider is just brutal.
Yeah.
How does Telstar, the second-tier side, stack up?
Telstar from the Keukenkampioen Divisie showed impressive resilience with that 2-2 comeback in the first leg. Their forward, Yusuf El Kachadi, is a crucial figure scored in the first leg and has 24 goals this season.
Key player.
Very. Telstar's recent form is strong overall, 4 wins in their last 5 matches.
After that first leg, the head-to-head feels particularly relevant.
It absolutely does. The 2-2 draw sets a precedent for a high-scoring game in this leg. Looking back, their last 3 direct encounters saw both teams to score come in.
Okay.
And remarkably, their last 2 direct meetings saw both teams score 2 or more goals.
Really? Both scored 2+.
Yeah. While Willem II has a historical edge overall, that recent trend of BTTS and multiple goals is a very strong indicator for this specific match.
Right. Player availability.
Willem II is missing Donny Mathieu, Sista Sandra, and Runar Thor Sigurgeirsson, who unfortunately scored an own goal in the first leg.
Oh, dear.
Amin Lachkar returning from suspension is a potential boost for their defense, which they desperately need. Telstar doesn't have specific new injuries listed in the sources, so El Kachadi, their potent threat, is available.
So the tactical picture is high stakes. 2-2 aggregate means both have to score to win. Willem II's documented defensive struggles, amplified by that long winless streak, seem highly exploitable. Telstar's good recent form and the availability of their key striker pose a real threat. And the sources mention the Eredivisie is generally bullish goals-wise.
All those factors combine. The data points strongly towards goals in this game. Key takeaways. Over 2.5 goals is heavily supported by the first leg outcome and the recent head-to-head trend. Both teams to score, BTTS, is also considered highly probable, particularly given that recent history. A goal before halftime is likely due to the high stakes neither team can afford to wait and the early intent shown in the first leg.
Okay.
A cautious note from the analysis on simply backing Willem II to win. They are the higher division side and market favorite, sure, but that 16-match winless streak and Telstar's current form make the odds around 1.79 potentially questionable value compared to the goal markets.
Let's shift our focus north now to Norway and the Eliteserien. First match on the schedule, Fredrikstad versus Sarpsborg 08 at 1:30 p.m. Fredrikstad is pushing for European spots. Sarpsborg is mid-table.
Fredrikstad, up in 4th place, has hit a slight dip recently with 2 losses, but their home record is genuinely impressive. The sources note their only home loss was to a reinvigorated Rosenborg. What's particularly interesting is their home scoring pattern. 7 of their 9 home goals have come in the first half. They also boast a strong 56% clean sheet rate overall.
Solid.
Sarpsborg 08 in 9th has also lost 2 recently. An interesting note on their away form. They haven't yet played any teams ranked 4th through 11th away from home this season.
Okay. How does their historical head-to-head compare to Fredrikstad's current home form?
Historically, Sarpsborg has a slight edge over a larger number of matches, and in the recent 6 meetings, Sarpsborg also has the advantage. 4 wins versus Fredrikstad's 1.
Right.
However, this historical trend directly contradicts Fredrikstad's current very strong home form. The analysis suggests recent form is a much more reliable indicator here than the historical H2H.
Got it. What's the player availability looking like, especially for Sarpsborg with that recent form dip?
Fredrikstad looks in good shape, according to the sources, with Fallu fallback from suspension and Emil Holten leading their attack, suggesting a fully fit squad available.
Good for them.
Sarpsborg 08, however, faces significant injury issues. Anders, him, and Sandra Orgesater are out with serious injuries. Emar Schur is a doubt. Joe Ingeberget and Niklas Sandberg are also not expected to play.
Wow, that's a list.
It is. While Daniel Karlsbæk, who has 5 goals, is expected to start, their extensive injury list, particularly in midfield and attack, is expected to severely weaken them.
Okay, so the tactical picture is Fredrikstad's strong, solid home form, meeting a Sarpsborg side that is not only in a form dip, but also significantly weakened by injuries.
Pretty much. Fredrikstad's tendency for first-half goals at home, 7 out of 9, points towards an aggressive start. This, combined with Sarpsborg's issues, makes Fredrikstad a strong candidate to control the game and outscore their opponent.
So the injury list for Sarpsborg is really the key factor here, overriding historical trends and even recent form tips.
That's precisely the conclusion from the data. The key takeaways. Fredrikstad is favored to win.
Right.
Supported by their first-half goal tendency at home, Fredrikstad is likely to lead at halftime. Given their home scoring ability and Sarpsborg's weakened defense, Fredrikstad is expected to score over 1.5 goals.
Next up in Norway, Brann versus Kristiansund at 4 p.m. Brann is high up the table but coming off a heavy defeat, while Kristiansund has strong away momentum.
Yeah, Brann, sitting 3rd, is indeed rebounding from an unexpected 3-0 loss to Molde last time out, a result that was a big talking point.
Bit of a shock.
Definitely. But overall, they've had a strong season. Their home record is solid. Here's a fascinating tactical trend from the analysis. 8 of their 10 home goals have come in the second half.
Oh, interesting. Late bloomers at home.
Exactly. They have a strong expected goals for 1.94 and high possession, 66%. Kristiansund, in 8th, has shown impressive away form recently. 3 wins, 1 draw in their last 4 away, and scored in their last 6 away games.
Okay, Brann is a second-half home scoring team. What's the key observation about Kristiansund away, especially against top teams?
Right. The critical observation for Kristiansund is that despite their good away form and scoring streak, they have yet to defeat a top 4 team away from home this season. Losing both matches against current top 4 sides, even when they manage to score. Defensively away, they are vulnerable in the second half, conceding 67% of their away goals after the break.
So they score, but can't beat the best away and concede late.
That's the picture. Their expected goals for 1.28 is lower than Brann's, and their expected goals against 1.69 is higher.
Right, head-to-head.
Brann has a slight historical edge over 16 matches. Their most recent encounter was a dominant 5-0 win for Brann in June 2024.
5-0, okay.
Yeah. This history, combined with the recent emphatic win, suggests Brann feels comfortable playing against this opponent.
What's the player availability picture look like?
Brann is missing Niklas Jensen Wasberg and Sakarius Opsahl, but Selland Hedebo, a key attacker with 5 goals, is available, showing their squad depth.
Right.
Kristiansund is without Max Norman Williamson. Aljon Ndor is a doubt after coming off last match, which could significantly weaken their attack if he's out, potentially replaced by Mustafa Issa.
So Brann's 3-0 loss might be seen as an anomaly against their overall strong season. Kristiansund's good away form is tempered by their consistent inability to beat top teams away, even when they score. The analysis suggests this match is likely to be decided late, right?
Exactly. The tactical alignment here is almost perfect for Brann late in the game.
How so?
Brann's strong second-half scoring tendency at home, 8 of 10 goals after the break, aligns perfectly with Kristiansund's second-half conceding vulnerability away from home, 67% of goals conceded after the break. This creates a clear, data-driven tactical advantage for Brann as the game wears on.
Interesting. The key takeaways here, then.
Brann is favored to win. The data strongly suggests the second half will be the higher-scoring half due to those aligned trends.
Okay.
Brann is likely to score in the second half. And over 2.5 goals is probable, as both teams average well over this total in their matches this season. Brann 3.3, Kristiansund 2.50.
Brann versus Sandefjord at 4 p.m. in Norway. Brann is a newly promoted team fighting to avoid the relegation playoff, while Sandefjord is pushing for Europe.
Yeah, Brann, in 12th place, is promoted and sitting right on the edge of the relegation playoff spot. They haven't had a single draw this season, and their home form is mixed. The sources highlight that their matches often have a busy first half with goals before halftime.
Okay, lots of early action.
Seems like it. A significant defensive vulnerability, though. 6 of their 8 home goals have been conceded in the first half.
Leaky early.
Very. They've also struggled against top 12 teams, with 5 defeats compared to just 1 win. Their matches averaged 3.50 total goals. Sandefjord, in 5th, is also a team of wins and losses this season with very few draws. They have a tendency for one team to score 3 goals in their matches, happen on 5 occasions. Crucially, they have scored in every match this season.
Every single one.
Consistent.
Very consistent. Their expected goals for is a strong 1.87.
So, Brann is leaky early at home, and Sandefjord is a consistent scorer who can put up multiple goals. That's the core dynamic. Head-to-head history heavily favors Sandefjord. 6 wins versus Brann's 2 in 10 meetings, outscoring Brann 17-5. This historical dominance suggests Sandefjord feels comfortable scoring against this opponent.
Player availability.
Brann's Sondre Norheim returns from suspension, but they have defensive absences with John Helgeveda out and Jacob Hard doubtful of concern given their early conceding problems.
Right.
Sandefjord is missing striker Stefan Igny Sigurdarsson due to suspension, but Daryl Comdem Tabell is expected to lead the attack as a capable replacement.
Okay. Tactical picture. Brann's busy first-half trend and their high first-half conceding rate strongly point towards early goal-mouth action. This aligns perfectly with Sandefjord's consistency in scoring in every match. But the analysis highlights an interesting potential vulnerability for Sandefjord.
Yes, a key point from the source is Sandefjord's noted inability to conjure up a second goal away when they are already leading by 1.
Okay, so they struggle to kill games off away?
Seems that way sometimes. This suggests they can be vulnerable if opponents fight back. This, combined with Brann's recent 4-3 high-scoring win, implies Brann can find goals and contribute to a high-scoring game, even if they concede early.
So an open match, goals expected from both sides, maybe with a twist if Sandefjord gets an early lead?
Exactly. The key takeaways. Over 1.5 goals in the first half is strongly supported by Brann's early conceding and Sandefjord's scoring consistency.
Right.
Both teams to score, BTTS, is highly likely given both teams' scoring records and Brann's defense. Over 2.5 goals overall is probable, as both teams average well over 3 total goals in their matches.
Okay.
And a specific tactical insight from the source, consider laying Sandefjord if leading by 1 goal late in the game, based on their noted difficulty securing that second away goal when ahead.
Haugesund versus Bodø/Glimt at 4 p.m. in Norway. This match, according to the analysis, looks like a significant mismatch.
Oh, it's the biggest mismatch on the slate in Norway, yeah. Haugesund is rock bottom in 16th place with just 1 point in dire relegation trouble.
Just 1 point. Yikes.
Yeah. They've lost almost every match and have never scored 2 goals in a single match this season. Their underlying numbers are dire. Low expected goals for 1.1 and very high expected goals against 2.24, showing severe struggles at both ends. Plus, they have a tendency to concede late, with 5 of their 11 home goals coming in the last 15 minutes.
Okay.
Bodo Glimt in 6th is aiming to regain momentum after a couple of recent defeats, but overall they've only lost twice this season. They're consistent scorers, netting in every match. Their expected goals for 1.76 is strong, and expected goals against 1.25 is solid.
Bodo Glimt also has a clear historical advantage over Haugesund, including a 4-2 win in their last meeting.
Yes, the historical dominance and the recent result, combined with Haugesund's abysmal current form, heavily point towards a comfortable Bodo Glimt win. Player availability: Haugesund has more injuries, Ilir Kukleci, Jasper Silva Torkildsen, Troy Niemer, further weakening their already struggling squad. Bodo Glimt, however, has several significant notable absences. Captain Patrick Berg, Håkon Evjen midfield, and Andreas Hummersen forward are suspended. Ole Didrik Blomberg, winger, and Odin Biertuft, center back, are also doubts.
Wait, Bodo Glimt is missing a lot of key players, including their captain and some attackers?
Yeah.
Doesn't that significantly impact their chances and maybe level the playing field a bit for Haugesund?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But what's absolutely fascinating here, and a key insight from the source material, is that Haugesund's extreme weakness, their inability to score multiple goals, their dire defensive numbers, is considered so pronounced that it's expected to completely overshadow Bodo Glimt's list of absences.
Wow, really?
Yeah. The analysis concludes that Bodo Glimt still has more than enough quality and depth to comfortably beat the weakest team in the league, even with those players out.
Interesting.
Tactically, the sources frame this as an ideal time for Bodo Glimt to steady the ship after their recent losses. Expect Bodo Glimt to consistently exploit Haugesund's severe defensive weaknesses, and the data suggests they will unlock 2+ goals. Haugesund's inability to score 2 goals themselves highlights how one-sided the scoring is likely to be. And remember, Haugesund's vulnerability to late goals, 5 of 11 home goals in the last 15 minutes, that aligns perfectly with Bodo Glimt's potential to strike late if they need to.
So high probability for goals, likely concentrated from Bodo Glimt, potentially late.
Key takeaways. Bodo Glimt is favored to win, and combined with Haugesund's poor defense, over 2.5 goals is probable.
Okay.
Bodo Glimt is expected to score over 1.5 goals, reinforcing how one-sided the scoring is likely to be given Haugesund's inability to score 2.
Right.
Based on Haugesund's tendency to concede late, look for a goal after the 75th minute as an in-play consideration. And given Haugesund's extremely low scoring record, Bodo Glimt to win 10-0 is a strong possibility.
Rosenborg versus KFUM Oslo at 4 p.m. in Norway. Rosenborg is pushing for a Champions League spot in second place, while newly promoted KFUM Oslo is deep in the relegation zone.
Yeah, Rosenborg, in second place, has shown clear improvement this season, with only 1 loss against Bodo Glimt. Their defense has been particularly impressive, with 7 clean sheets overall, and a remarkable 4 in their last 5 home matches.
Very solid defensively.
Very. Their underlying numbers show this strength. Strong expected goals for 1.80 and a very low expected goals against 0.80. They average a solid 1.2 goals scored and just 1.6 conceded overall.
Wow.
KFUM Oslo, down in 15th, is having a difficult season, with 6 losses in their last 7 matches and 3 in their last 4 away. Their offensive output is very low, averaging just 0.6 goals scored per game while conceding 1.5. The sources note they had minimal shots on goal in a recent match, just 2 on target from 3 total shots.
Now, the head-to-head here is quite surprising given the current league positions.
It certainly is. KFUM Oslo surprisingly holds the historical edge from the 2 previous meetings between these clubs, winning both with a 4-1 aggregate score, including a 1-0 win last August. However, this historical H2H directly contradicts KFUM's current abysmal form and struggles against Rosenborg's very strong form and significant improvement this season. The analysis emphasizes that current form is far more relevant and predictive here than that small historical sample size.
Got it. Player availability.
Also a key factor, Rosenborg might be without striker Noah Jean Holm, but Dino Islamovic is a potential replacement. Thomas Nemchik, left defender, is out until late June.
Okay.
However, KFUM Oslo faces significant challenges. Simon Hesnes, midfielder, is suspended after a red card. Johannes Nunes, striker, and Mansour Sinyan, midfielder, are doubts. Their midfield and attack options are severely depleted, making it incredibly difficult for them to create chances against Rosenborg's robust defense.
So Rosenborg's exceptional defensive record, combined with KFUM's offensive struggles and extensive injury list, seems to be the decisive dynamic here.
Absolutely. Rosenborg's recent defensive prowess is the dominant factor highlighted by the data. A clean sheet for Rosenborg is considered highly probable. The analysis suggests that KFUM, even at their worst, could concede 3 goals, which aligns with Rosenborg's potential to score multiple at home. The data points heavily towards a 1-0 outcome for Rosenborg, likely falling within a small pool of scorelines like 1-0, 2-0, or 3-0 controlled victory.
The key takeaways then.
Rosenborg is highly favored to win 2-0 given their exceptional defense against a struggling and injured KFUM offense.
Okay.
Under 3.5 goals is probable, as KFUM's inability to contribute offensively limits the potential for a high scoreline.
Right.
And Rosenborg is expected to score over 1.5 goals, showcasing their offensive quality against KFUM's defense, especially with KFUM's recent tendency to concede heavily.
Final Norwegian match, Molde versus Viking at 6:15 p.m. Molde is mid-table but a former champion, while Viking is currently leading the league.
Yeah, Molde in 10th place has had an inconsistent season, described in the sources as not been the team we expect.
Yeah.
Their home form is mixed. Only one of their matches has been 0-0 at halftime this season, suggesting a tendency for early action. They haven't played a top 5 team at home yet. Their underlying numbers, XGF 1.46, XGA 1.46, are balanced but not outstanding.
Right, and Viking.
Viking, sitting first place, is having an exceptional season, losing only their very first match and unbeaten in the 10 subsequent games.
Great run.
Fantastic run. They've scored in every match except one. However, they do have a defensive vulnerability, with only 2 clean sheets all season. Their matches are often high scoring, with both teams to score coming in during 4 of their last 5 away games.
Okay, so they score a lot but concede too.
Exactly. They boast a league-leading expected goals for 2.22, but their expected goals against 1.6 is also on the higher side. Their matches average a very high 3.13 total goals overall.
Interestingly, the head-to-head history between them is perfectly balanced. 4 wins each and 2 draws in 10 meetings, with an even goal difference.
Yeah, history doesn't strongly favor either side here, making current form and tactical approach more important. Player availability reports don't list any specific injuries for either team in the sources, suggesting both sides are likely near full strength.
So it's down to form on the day.
Pretty much. The outcome here depends purely on who performs better on the day. Tactically, the sources note Molde's inconsistency clouds confidence in voting for Viking, despite Viking's impressive away record and unbeaten run.
Okay.
This points to Molde's unpredictability they can perform, even if they haven't consistently. Vikings' high-scoring nature, averaging over 3 goals per game, and their tendency for BTTS away, 4 of 5, strongly suggests this will be an open game with goals from both sides.
Right.
Molde's tendency for early action also supports this. Viking concedes goals, and Molde has the potential to find the net, especially at home.
So it's leaning towards an open game with goals from both teams. And maybe Viking won't have it entirely their own way, despite being top of the table.
That's what the analysis suggests. The key takeaways: both teams to score, BTTS, is highly probable, based on Vikings' away trend and Molde's potential at home.
Okay.
Over 2.5 goals is also likely, as both teams average well over that total per match.
Right.
And considering Viking is top, but Molde is unpredictable at home with a balanced H2H, draw, or Viking win, double chance, is considered a safer approach than a straight Viking win, offering value given Molde's potential to hold them.
Over to Portugal now for some high-stakes relegation playoff analysis. First, the League of Portugal playoff second leg. Vizela versus AFS at 7:45 p.m.
Right.
AFS won the first leg convincingly 3-0.
Yeah, Vizela, who finished 16th in Liga Portugal, is in deep trouble after that 3-0 first leg loss away against AFS, the third-place team from Liga Portugal, too.
Big hole to climb out of.
Massive. AFS secured that dominant first leg lead with a devastating 8-minute spell in the second half, scoring all 3 goals during that burst.
Wow, quick fire.
Yeah. The AFS coach highlighted their tactical approach, applying pressure in midfield and then hit them on the break. Vizela's coach conceded they were superior in first half of the first leg, but crucially failed to convert their chances. Their expected goals in that first leg was 1.6, showing they did create opportunities.
So Vizela needs to overturn a 3-goal deficit at home. It completely dictates their approach, doesn't it?
It absolutely forces their hand. Vizela must play aggressive, open, attacking football right from the start if they have any hope of overturning that deficit.
Leaving gaps at the back, presumably.
Inevitably. And that plays directly into AFS's preferred counterattacking strength, which they demonstrated so effectively in the first leg second half. This dynamic is expected to create a much more open game, with potentially many more goals than we saw in the cautious first half of the first leg.
What's the player availability looking like for this decisive second leg?
Vizela has no new injuries reported since the first leg, and importantly, defender Jean-Pierre Reiner returns from suspension, which should bolster their defense slightly. The source notes Vizilla's coach might even go for a two-man strike force to chase goals.
Going for it.
Has to. AFS, however, has significant absences. Lucas Fernandez, attacking midfielder, and Gerson Rodriguez, center forward, are likely out injured. Their head coach, Jose Mota, is suspended from the touchline, and Rafael Rodriguez, left back, was injured in the first leg, though Kiki Afonso returns from suspension and competes for that spot.
Okay, so AFS missing some key people, but maybe Vizilla's desperation is the bigger factor.
And that's what the analysis suggests. Vizilla's desperation and their demonstrated inability to convert chances, even when perceived as superior in leg one, might be the bigger hurdles. AFS showed they can score quickly in bursts. Those 3 goals in 8 minutes are proof, and they'll look to capitalize on desperate Vizela errors or fatigue as the game wears on.
The key takeaways then. Vizilla's need forcing an open game and AFS's counter threat point to goals.
Exactly. Over 2.5 goals is considered highly probable, driven by Vizilla's need for goals forcing an open game and AFS's counterattacking threat.
Right.
Both teams to score, BTTS, is likely with Vizela pushing forward and AFS looking to counter. AFS to win or draw, double tans, is strongly favored due to their commanding aggregate lead and a counterattacking style that's difficult to break down, making it probable they secure at least a draw in this leg despite their absences.
Okay.
And specifically, AFS to score in the second half aligns with their tendency to score late or in bursts, capitalizing on Vizela's increasing desperation or fatigue.
Moving to the Liga Portugal 2 relegation playoff second leg. Pacos Ferreira versus Os Belenenses at 5 p.m. Os Belenenses won the first leg 2-0, scoring both goals in the second half.
Similar scenario here. Pacos Ferreira, 16th Liga Portugal 2, trails Os Belenenses, Liga 3, 2-0 on aggregate. Both goals in the first leg came after halftime for Os Belenenses.
Right.
What's interesting here is that Pacos Ferreira is the surprising 1.73 favorite for this individual leg, despite being 2 goals down.
Really? Why is that?
Well, the sources note that Pacos Ferreira did score a goal in the first leg after a red card incident involving a squad member who wasn't even on the pitch.
Weird.
Yeah, suggesting the incident might have skewed the game flow and allowed Pacos that goal.
So the market is basically saying that red card incident skewed the first leg, and Pacos Ferreira, as the team from the higher division, is inherently stronger and should win this leg.
That appears to be the interpretation underpinning the odds, raising the question, will the expected dominance from the side from the better division resume in the second leg? Looking at goal patterns, both teams had their first leg goals in the second half, but Os Belenenses has a higher overall percentage of goals scored after halftime, 70%, compared to Pacos Ferreira, 32%.
Okay. Player availability.
Reports didn't list any specific injuries or suspensions for the playing squads in the sources, suggesting both teams are likely fielding their available players. The market favoring Pacos suggests any impact from that first leg red card incident involving a non-playing squad member is factored in or considered negligible for the players on the pitch in the second leg.
Tactical outlook. Pacos Ferreira needs to overturn a 2-goal deficit at home, meaning they must be aggressive from the start. This should lead to an open game, creating potential for goals at both ends.
Right.
But their aggressive posture also risks leaving them vulnerable to counterattacks, especially in the second half, where Os Belenenses has shown strength in scoring.
The second half could indeed be decisive again. The key takeaways. Over 2.5 goals is probable, as Pacos' need for 2 or more goals forces an open game, and Os Belenenses has scoring ability. Both teams to score, BTTS is likely, with Pacos needing goals and Os Belenenses capable of scoring, especially in the second half. Pacos Ferreira to win as a cautious approach. The market significantly favors them despite the deficit, suggesting confidence in their inherent quality and home edge, so backing them to win this match might offer value.
Right.
And the second half is likely to be the higher scoring half, aligning with Os Belenenses' first leg pattern and their overall tendency to score heavily after halftime.
Now, a large section covering the Spain La Liga 2 final match day analysis, several matches all kicking off at similar times, but with wildly different stakes.
Yeah, this is where that overarching theme of end-of-season motivation becomes the dominant factor shaping the analysis. You've got teams fighting for automatic promotion, battling for playoff spots, others who are already relegated, and some with absolutely nothing left to play for.
Chaos potential.
Definitely. The sources break down the impact of these stakes on expected tactics, intensity, and player availability.
Let's group these slightly by what's on the line, starting with the matches where neither team has anything to play for the dead rubbers. That's Huesca versus Eldense at 3:15 p.m. and Cordoba versus Albacete at 8 p.m.
Right. In games like these, with no pressure, the dynamics completely change. Both teams are either guaranteed promotion, stuck in mid-table, or already relegated. Motivation is unpredictable, which often leads to more free-flowing play, less defensive discipline, and potentially more goals.
Makes sense. Less tension.
Exactly. For Huesca versus Eldense, both relegated, although the sources league table has a slight discrepancy on Eldense's final position versus the text. Both teams' underlying numbers, XGF 1.21 for Huesca, 1.46 for Eldense, suggest they can create chances. With relaxed defenses, goals become more likely.
Okay.
Similarly, for Cordoba versus Albacete, both mid-table, season over, both have high average total goals per game. Cordoba 2.93, Albacete 2.73, and high BTTS percentages. Injuries for both sides are less about competitive edge and more about giving minutes or managing existing issues.
So for these dead rubber games, the data consistently points to more open affairs.
Yeah, pretty clearly. The key insights for both Huesca versus Eldense and Cordoba versus Albacete are the same. Over 2.5 goals is probable.
Right.
Both teams to score, BTTS is also probable. The lack of pressure usually means more attacking freedom and less defensive focus.
Now let's look at the games where one team has everything to play for automatic promotion or a playoff spot against a team whose season is essentially over or they are already relegated.
Yeah.
That's Almeria versus Tenerife, Deportivo La Coruna versus Elche, FC Cartagena, SAD versus Mirandes, and R Oviedo versus Cadiz CF. All at 5:20 p.m., apart from Depor Elche and Cartagena Mirandes, also at 5:30, and Oviedo Cadiz at 5:30. Wait, they're all 5:3, except Huesca Eldense earlier and Cordoba Albacete later. Got it.
Right. The bulk are at 5:30. These matches highlight the power of extreme motivation versus none. For Almeria versus Tenerife, Almeria must win for a playoff spot against a relegated Tenerife. Almeria has a strong offense, XGF 1.70, and has been dominant against Tenerife recently. 5 wins and last 5 H2H.
Yeah.
Almeria also gets key players back from suspension, while Tenerife is hit by injuries. Almeria's high-intensity offense against a relegated, injured, and likely unmotivated opponent points to a potentially one-sided game with multiple goals.
Elche needs a win for automatic promotion, or even the title against Deportivo La Coruna, whose season is done.
Yeah, Elche is under high pressure, but facing a Deportivo side in poor form, conceding frequently with multiple injuries, especially defensive and midfield, and no motivation. Elche has a more reliable defense recently and a nearly full squad.
Big advantage.
Huge. Elche's urgency will lead to a high-pressing, attacking approach exploiting Deportivo's weaknesses.
Mirandes needs a win for a chance at automatic promotion against a relegated FC Cartagena SAD with severe defensive issues.
Mirandes is guaranteed a playoff spot, but auto promo is the prize they'll chase. Cartagena has a very poor defense, conceded 75 overall, and is plagued by long-term key injuries, severely impacting their performance. Mirandes is in strong form with a full squad available. Mirandes' high motivation against Cartagena's severe defensive weakness and injury crisis creates a sharp contrast and points to Mirandes scoring multiple goals.
And Oviedo must win for their automatic promotion chance against a Cadiz CF whose season is over.
Oviedo is in a critical must-win scenario. Cadiz has nothing to play for and is significantly depleted by an extensive list of long-term absentees.
Right.
Oviedo's need will drive an aggressive attacking approach, facing a Cadiz side that is unlikely to offer strong defensive resistance due to lack of motivation and personnel issues.
Across all these matches, the key takeaway seems to be that the highly motivated team needing the win is expected to dominate and score multiple goals against the opponent with nothing to play for, especially if that opponent also has injury issues.
Exactly. The analysis for these 4 matches leads to very similar conclusions driven by that overwhelming motivation factor. The key insights for Almeria versus Tenerife, Deportivo La Coruna versus Elche, FC Cartagena, SAD versus Mirandes, and R Oviedo versus Cadiz CFR. The highly motivated team, Almeria, Elche, Mirandes, R Oviedo, is favored to win. And in most cases, combined with the opponent's weakness, over 2.5 goals is probable. The motivated team is expected to score over 1.5 goals.
Okay.
And given the opponent's lack of offensive threat or injury woes, the motivated team is also likely to win 2-0 in several of these matchups.
Okay, one more La Liga 2 grouping Levante versus Eibar at 5.3. Levante needs a point, maybe a win for the title. Eibar's season is over.
Right. Levante's a guaranteed automatic promotion, but the title is on the line. A draw might do it. A win guarantees it. Eibar, meanwhile, is mid-table with nothing to play for.
High stakes versus no stakes again.
Exactly. Levante's matches average 2.68 total goals. They score plenty, 1.66 per game. IBARs are lower scoring generally, 2.05 total. The head-to-head actually has a high number of draws, historically 17 in 30 meetings.
That's a lot of draws.
It is. But player availability favors Levante. They get Oriol Ray back from suspension. IBAR has a couple of injuries, and combined with their lack of motivation, it leans towards Levante overcoming that draw history. Levante will want an early goal to settle nerves and clinch the title.
Makes sense. Key insights.
Levante is favored to win. Levante likely to score in the first half, given their motivation for an early lead. And over 2.5 goals is probable, driven by Levante's offense and the potential for IBAR to play more openly with nothing on the line.
Finally, in La Liga 2, the direct battle for a playoff spot.
Lower.
Racing Santander versus Granada CF at 5:30 p.m. Both teams must win.
This is the big one. The highest stakes match on the final day for the playoff places. Racing Santander 5th needs to win, and Granada CF 7th needs to win to overtake them and snatch the spot.
Winner takes all, basically.
Pretty much. This must-win scenario for both guarantees intensity. Looking at recent history, the last 5 H2H meetings favor Granada. 3 wins versus Racing's 1.
Okay.
Player availability is also key here. Racing Santander is missing a significant defensive piece in Inigo Sainz-Maza due to a cruciate injury. Granada CF, according to the sources, is free from injuries and suspensions, fielding a full squad.
Full squad versus key injury. Big difference.
Huge difference in a game like this. The tactical picture is 2 teams pushing hard for a goal, as a draw helps neither significantly for the playoff spot. Racing's defensive injury and Granada's full strength provide a significant advantage for Granada in this high-pressure situation. The analysis suggests Granada might have the edge in finding the decisive goals needed.
So the head-to-head and player availability slightly tilt this high-stakes battle in Granada's favor.
That's what the data indicates. The key takeaways for this direct playoff showdown. Both teams to score, BTTS, is highly probable due to the high stakes and offensive needs of both teams. Over 2.5 goals is also likely for the same reasons. It's a direct battle where defensive caution takes a backseat to scoring. And given Granada's full squad and recent H2H advantage, Granada CF to win or draw, double chance, is favored by the analysis.
Switching now to Sweden, starting with the Allsvenskan analysis. Let's begin with Brommapojkarna versus Göteborg at 1 p.m.
Okay, Brommapojkarna, down in 12th, is on a dismal run of 5 consecutive defeats, with 4 of those being narrow 1-0 losses.
Ouch, consistent 1-0 losses.
Yeah. They've failed to score in all their home matches against teams currently ranked 13th or higher. A key stat, over 71% of the goals they concede come in the second half.
Okay. Late vulnerability.
Göteborg in 6th has mixed away form, but crucially has won all 3 matches they've played away against teams ranked 10th or lower. Player availability is a significant factor. Brommapojkarna has an extensive injury list, while Göteborg also has injuries and a suspension, but Brommapojkarna's list is considered worse relative to their squad depth and form.
Right.
The tactical picture is Göteborg's solid away record against lower-ranked teams meeting a Brommapojkarna side that struggles to score, often loses 1-0, and is particularly vulnerable in the second half. This suggests a tight match, likely decided in the second half.
Key takeaways.
Göteborg is favored to win. Given Brommapojkarna's tendency for 1-0 losses and the expectation of a tight game, under 2.5 goals is probable.
Okay.
And based on Brommapojkarna conceding over 71% of their goals in the second half is likely to be the higher scoring half.
Halmstad versus Djurgården, also at 1 p.m.
Halmstad, 13th place, has lost all 7 of their matches against teams currently ranked 11th or higher this season.
All 7. Wow.
Yeah. Another defensive trend, 12 of the 17 goals they've conceded at home have come in the second half. Djurgården, in 9th, has had a recent dip in form with 4 defeats and 1 win in their last 4 matches. However, they have a clear pattern against lower-ranked teams away. They've won 1-0 in all 3 matches they've played away against teams ranked 12th or lower.
Grinding out those 1-0s.
Exactly. Both teams have some injuries, but Halmstad's consistent struggles against top teams, against Djurgården's tendency for tight away wins against lower sides, is the dominant dynamic.
So Djurgården's ability to grind out 1-0 wins against lower teams meets Halmstad's tendency to lose and concede late against better opposition.
Yes. Key takeaways. Djurgården is favored to win.
Right.
Following their trend against similar opponents, under 2.5 goals is probable.
Okay.
And given Halmstad's struggles to score against top teams and Djurgården's recent clean sheets, Djurgården to win to 0 is a strong possibility.
Malmö FF versus Häcken at 1 p.m. Malmo is underperforming slightly relative to expectations, while Häcken has also had some losses.
Yeah, Malmo FF, in 5th, has underperformed slightly compared to their champion status, with 3 defeats already. Häcken, in 8th, has also had 4 defeats. Malmo hasn't played a current top 5 team at home yet. Häcken hasn't played a top 5 team away, but has beaten teams ranked 6th and 9th away.
Okay.
However, the massive factor in this match, highlighted throughout sources, is Häcken's extensive injury list.
The injuries again.
Huge list. It includes numerous key players and top scorers. Malmo also has injuries and a suspension, but nothing on the scale of Häcken's crisis.
So despite Malmo's slight underperformance, Häcken's severe injury situation is the overriding factor.
Absolutely. Häcken's squad is severely depleted, especially in attacking areas. Malmo is expected to capitalize on this to regain some form. Key takeaways. Malmo FF is highly favored to win due to Häcken's severe injury crisis.
Right.
However, because Häcken's offensive struggles are expected due to those injuries, under 3.5 goals is probable. Malmo is expected to win comfortably, but perhaps not in a complete rout against a team struggling to create anything.
Mjolby versus Varnamo at 3:3 p.m. Mjolby is the standout side currently, while Varnamo is struggling.
Yeah, Mjolby, sitting top in first place, is the clear standout side mentioned in the sources. They have only 1 defeat all season and have gone 10 consecutive matches without a 0-0 halftime scoreline.
Always action early.
Seems like it. They've also scored in their last 12 matches and are beating teams above them in the table. Their expected goals for is strong, 1.55. Varnamo, down in 16th, is definitely struggling, with 3 draws in their last 4 matches and losses otherwise. Their expected goals for is surprisingly similar to Mjolby's, 1.54, but they aren't converting chances or getting results.
Right.
Mjolby has a minor injury concern with Timo Stavitsky, but Uba Charles is expected to replace him, showcasing their depth. Varnamo is missing Albin Lohikangas.
Okay.
The tactical picture is Mjolby's dominant form and consistent scoring ability, especially their tendency to score early, no 0-0 HT in 10 matches, against a struggling Varnamo side. Mjolby is considered overwhelming favorites.
The data points strongly to Mjolby dominance, potentially starting early.
Yes. Key takeaways. Mjolby is heavily favored to win, and combined with their high-scoring matches, over 2.5 goals is probable.
Okay.
Mjolby is expected to score over 1.5 goals due to their consistent offensive power. And a goal before halftime is highly probable, given their tendency for early goals and absence of 0-0 halftimes recently.
Finishing the Allsvenskan analysis with Sirius versus AIK at 3:30 p.m.
Okay, Sirius, in 14th, has scored in their last 8 matches and has been involved in some surprisingly high-scoring losses against top teams, 4-3 versus 3rd, 3-2 versus 4th. Their expected goal for is 1.48.
So they score, but concede a lot against good teams.
Seems that way. AIK, in 2nd place, is unbeaten recently, but has drawn 3 of their last 4 matches, including 3 consecutive away draws they seem to have Doritis away from home.
Dropping points.
Yeah, their expected goals for and against are balanced, 1.431, 0.44. Historically, AIK is dominant against Sirius, 14 wins versus Sirius's 1 in 22 meetings. Player availability. Sirius is missing Noel Milliskog, re-injured. AIK has several players sidelined or near return, including key defenders. The tactical picture here is AIK's recent tendency for tight away draws meeting a Sirius side that, despite their league position, has shown they can score and participate in high-scoring games against better opposition, albeit often losing. AIK has a strong second-half goal tendency, which could be a factor. The historical H2H doesn't seem as relevant given AIK's recent form dip draws.
So despite AIK's position, their recent away draws and Sirius's involvement in high-scoring matches point towards an open game with goals.
That's the analysis, the key takeaways. Both teams to score, BTTS, is probable based on Sirius's recent scoring run and AIK's tendency for open games away.
Okay.
Over 2.5 goals is also likely, supported by Sirius's high-scoring losses against top teams and AIK's offensive capabilities.
Right.
And a goal in the second half is probable, aligning with AIK's strong second-half goal tendency and Sirius's potential to concede later.
Quick insights from the Sweden Superettan. Helsingborg versus Östersund at 2 p.m.
Right. Helsingborg, 12th, is a low-scoring team, only 3 of their games going over 2.5 total goals. 67% of their goals come in the first half. They win matches mostly, 1-0 or 2-0.
Tight wins.
Yeah. Östersund, 8th, has lost 3 recently, but has kept 2 clean sheets. Crucially, they are unbeaten both home and away against teams ranked 7th or lower this season. Their expected goals numbers are slightly better than Helsingborg's. Although the market favors Helsingborg, this contradicts Östersund's strong record against similar opponents.
Key insights, then.
Östersund to win or draw, double chance, based on their strong record versus lower teams, and Helsingborg struggles.
Okay.
Under 2.5 goals is probable due to Helsingborg's strong unders pattern and Östersund's recent clean sheets. A goal in the first half probably approach cautiously. While Helsingborg has a 1H goal tendency, the overall expected low score limits confidence in an early goal.
Sundsvall versus Valkenburg, also at 2 p.m.
Sundsvall 9th has a poor home record, losing all 3 matches they've played at home against current top 10 teams. A high 83% of the goals in their matches come in the second half.
Very late action.
Very. Valkenburg 6th has only lost 2 matches, both away. They've kept 3 consecutive clean sheets recently, but failed to score twice recently. Valkenburg's recent clean sheet momentum and their solid performance against mid-table teams make them a strong contender here. Sundsvall's tendency for second-half goals and conceding creates a specific game flow contrast.
Key insights.
Valkenburg to win or draw, double chance, is favored due to their recent clean sheets and solid record against mid-table teams.
Okay.
Under 2.5 goals is probable given Valkenburg's clean sheets and Sundsvall's relatively low scoring.
Right.
And the second half is likely to be the higher scoring half, driven by Sundsvall's strong 2H goal habit and quiet first halves.
Odevold versus Landskrona at 4 p.m.
Both Odevold 4th and Landskrona 7th struggle against top 8 teams according to the analysis. Odevold has lost their last 3 matches and all 3 home matches against top 9 teams, but they have both scored and conceded in their last 4 home games.
So they score but lose against better teams at home.
Seems like it. Landskrona has lost their last 2, conceding 7 goals in those 2 games, but they have scored 2 or more goals in 7 matches this season, including their last 4 away.
High scoring way then.
Yeah. Historically, Landskrona has a slight edge in head-to-head. Neither team has significant injury concerns listed. The tactical picture is 2 teams struggling against higher opposition, but with Landskrona showing high scoring potential, particularly away, and Odevold consistently scoring and conceding at home. This dynamic points towards goals.
Key insights.
Over 2.5 goals is probable, driven by Landskrona's high-scoring away form and Odevold's tendency to score and concede at home.
Right.
Both teams to score, BTTS is likely, supported by Odevold's home trend and Landskrona's consistent scoring ability.
Okay.
There's a caution on picking a match winner, as both teams struggle against opponents of this caliber, according to the data.
Finally, a different kind of high-stakes match. The Swiss Cup final between Biel and Basel at 1 p.m.
Yeah, this is Promotion League side Biel up against Super League powerhouse Basel. Biel has actually built a history of cup upsets in this very competition, including beating Swiss Giants Young Boys 1-0 earlier in this cup run.
Impressive scalp.
Very. Basel, of course, is a Super League force, and the sources highlight their incredibly high offensive output recently, with numerous matches seeing them score 3, 4, even 5 goals.
Goal machine lately.
Pretty much. Basel has a couple of injuries, but Biel has no major injury concerns listed.
So Biel's history of giant killing meets Basel's recent goal-scoring machine in a one-off final.
Exactly. It sets up a fascinating dynamic. The sources don't go into the same level of detailed tactical breakdown as the league matches, but the core insight is the contrast between Biel's proven ability to cause upsets in the cup and Basel's sheer offensive power.
So what does this all mean when you look at all these fixtures together?
Well, it's truly fascinating, isn't it? How the data reveals such distinct patterns and crucial dynamics depending on the league, the stakes, and even the half of football being played. You see the sheer weight of end-of-season motivation completely reshaping games in La Liga too. How injuries can just gut a team's chances like we saw with Sarpsborg or Häcken.
Absolutely.
And these very specific trends like Nestand's explosive first half contrasting with Ilv's strong second half, or Brann and Kristiansund aligning for second half action.
Absolutely. The data allows us to look beyond just league positions and see the underlying vulnerabilities and strengths, whether it's Haugesund's extreme overall weakness or Sandefjord's interesting vulnerability when leading by a single goal away from home.
Right, exactly. We've seen how historical head-to-head can be a factor, but how current form and crucial player availability often override it completely, as we discussed with Rosenborg versus KFUM Oslo or Fredrikstad versus Sarpsborg.
And how high stakes in a playoff can lead to super tactical, low-scoring affairs like Spezia versus Cremonese, while other playoffs like Willem II versus Telstar or the Portuguese ones are likely to be high-scoring because the aggregate score forces teams to attack.
This raises an important question, I think, for you to consider as you process all this information. Beyond just looking at the final score or the win-loss columns, how much more can you understand about football matches by delving into these specific tactical trends, like when teams score or concede, the impact of key absences, or how the pressure of the situation completely changes a team's approach?
Yeah, something to mull over as you digest these insights into the June 1st fixtures. We hope this deep dive gives you a much more informed perspective.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the sources.
See you next time.